already?
Cheapest one they had and the best one they had.
How much?
Only 120.
That's good. Are you sure? Yeah? That was fast. Good job, guys.
And it's cheap. So we're going to talk more about that. So this is we're talking about the secret of it happening. Tornadoes. If you watched a shaman steer a tornado, you would see that the bioplasmic streamers from the belly of the shaman who is eating the hoocha, which is to say feeling the pain of the tornado, and the pain is only where fractality is bleeding. It's the only definition of pain. So where fractality bleeds charge, you call that pain. If you restore that implosive compression, pain goes away, and that is a summary of Therify.net plasma, where short-term pain we can deal with often within minutes, and long-term pain in, 5 to 15 sessions in many, but not all cases, but we're able to help people with that simple principle. Restored implosive charge compression is the electrical opposite of pain. So, as the Andromeda said, the only pain you feel is the love you withhold. Well, it's also the only pain you feel is the embedding. You withhold the implosion. The failure to see everything as inside you, which is to say, imploding. So this brings up this conversation about there is no junk DNA. In fact, the spacing between the braiding is what was called junk DNA. In fact, it's critical because it's how the DNA actually creates the charge implosion by that musical phase discipline, locking the short wave in the long wave, which is why Grammatical Man, Information, Entropy, Language, and Life, the famous book Jeremy Campbell, proved that the context richness of DNA was the braiding algorithm. Hello, it's music, it's embedding, it's shortwave phase coherence to law. So this is an introduction to implosion. How does DNA implode, and why is that ascension? That's the question on the table. That as your DNA gets longer and longer wavelengths with that completed braiding process, see here the longer wave on the right. So as those longer waves become present in the DNA, that means there's more, the phase conjugation at the center of the pine cones kissing noses gets more and more broad spectral, as it is in Therify. What we do to the plasma, we take very long waves, modulate on the megahertz, all accurately, and we create perfect broad spectral phase conjugate implosion, even optical phase conjugation in the plasma, and we create charge implosion. And it's negentropic, it's rejuvenating, it's powerful. It's a simple principle, and it's the drawing of the caduceus from Hermes, and it works. So that charge implosion, we can help with external plasma, which is what Therify is, but nature intended that you do it in your own DNA by learning to make bliss. Actually, that's what nature intended, and that is what we intend to talk about. And this is an early slideshow, so we have lots of pictures of how this works in DNA. You got this implosion way, and you see the braiding algorithm. It's an introduction of the Celtic knot, and there's a part of it that turns inside out recursively, which is called pelastration, which is how you make a Klein bottle, for example. And the DNA actually turns inside out, becomes toroidal DNA, circular DNA. Here's from the circular DNA. It's actually the seventh axis of superposed spin. So remember, we had 5 spins, literally, in the thread that's DNA, the dodeca ratchet, 5-axis spin symmetry, 5 dimensions. And then you ascend as the number of harmonics become phase coherent, where you have the braid of the braid of the braid on the braid, thread to string to rope to fat rope, etc. And that braid of the braid of the braid on the braid happens 7 times, co-defined by the 7 spin symmetry axis of the tetrahedra, the tetracube, the cube of space. It's all the 7 arrows, the seventh sign, opening the 7th seal. Well, that's what it is. At the 7th time, your DNA, you open the 7th seal. It's really true. And your DNA implodes, and you embed in that longitudinal, and you can be everywhere at once, and that's called Lord of the Ring. And that's where we're going with this. So this field of coherence made by your DNA, weak electric field, is called a cold plasma field. Remember, plasma is it means a cloud of charge. And physics is clear, 99.999% of the universe is plasma, which is say a cloud of charge, which is say a cloud of compressed ether, the compression rarefaction. So basically everything is plasma, so not surprising. Your aura is made of the same stuff as everything. It's just if it's coherently imploding, then that tornado will be sustainable and you can throw your weight around. But if you're not coherent, you're toast. You dissipate. And so that coherence of that aura field is called your ka, your boat into your underworld. And the amount of coherence there is measurable and it's teachable. So it is true that spiritual evolution and ascension is simply not just how many harmonics in your aura, but even more simple than that, it is how big is your aura, because it won't implode from the short wave to the long wave cascade coherently unless it's golden ratio, phase conjugate, implosive. So your aura can't get big unless you use golden ratio. So this is from the biophysics literature showing how golden ratio is implemented in DNA, and it's everywhere you look, of course. And this is talking